Nats fan for? Since today.
The Nats
Great
doing it for
sports
that
town.
guy
What a
and
sports
for
town.
Washington. The monkey wrench in the Astros-Yankees series, and LeBron James opts out. Here's our panel. Kevin Blackistone in Titletown. How do you guys manage without winning all these championships like Washington does? Nick Johnson, Jose Vidro, Luis Ayala, Christian Guzman, Nuke Logan, Niger Morgan, Elijah Dukes, Wulimo Pena, and Chad Cordero's hat. Look at this shot, by the way. Robles Leota there. This win was for the presidents and for this guy.
How long have you been a Nats fan for? Since today.
It's an incredible line read. You're all getting points for that guy. How about that guy? How the Nationals went from never winning a postseason series to never losing in an LCS game. Kevin Blackistone in Titletown. What did the Nationals just do?
What they did is what you're not supposed to be able to do in postseason baseball right now, and that is win with your starting pitching. It has been stunning, obviously, and they've got 4 of them. They have 2 pitchers that take no-nos into the 7th inning of playoff games, and the other guys have just been outstanding. Haven't had to rely on that much-maligned bullpen, and then when they had to, it came through as well. So in a lot of ways, I've said it before, but this postseason has been representative of their entire season. They have come from nowhere into the front, and they're on the home stretch, and it looks like they can be as favored as anyone to win it all right now.
Well, I mean, there's only going to be 2 teams in the World Series, so yes, they could be as favored as anybody.
As those 2.
Houston or New York. Bob Ryan, what did you see from this Nationals club?
Well, everyone saw the pitching. I mean, we're all going to say the same thing. Let's get that one straight. There's no way to get around it. They've got some. Rendon is one of the handful of greatest players in baseball. People are starting to realize that. He's an MVP candidate. The guy I want to talk about quickly, though, is Howie Kendrick. 14 years, under the radar, minding his own business, and had 296 lifetime. This year, he led the league in hitting. Oh, yes, he only had 370 at-bats. He's a professional hitter at the apex, when the spotlight is on him at this point of his career, who is coming through big time. In fact, even being his own self, making a couple of errors, but he overcomes it with the bat. I'm just happy for Howie Kendrick that the world at large is going to see a great professional having his moment.
I look over at Bill Plaschke now, and I'm reminiscent of a show maybe a week ago when you guaranteed the Nationals would be out of this series against the Dodgers. You're going the wrong way. Let's just go to Kalishaw first before we get back to Plaschke.
Good call there. You know, when we saw what they did to the Brewers coming back and go to the Dodgers coming back, you thought maybe they're a team of destiny that's always going to scratch and claw its way. I don't think anybody saw it going certainly St. Louis didn't see it going this way. When the Nationals had to go with their number 4 starter, Sanchez, in the first game, and the Cardinals, after 6 innings, are going, we don't have a hit off this guy, and we got Scherzer and Strasburg coming next. What are we up against? It's been an amazing pitching run, but, you know, the other guys mentioned Rendon and Soto. To have a young hitter like that who walks the way he does, they just have great discipline in certain spots, and it's just a heck of a hot team.
Oh,
right
sure. Hot team, Bill Plaschke. The Washington Nationals are a hot team. You know that better than anybody. What did you see from them in this series?
A great starting pitching. Of course, the Cardinals 130 batting average, the lowest ever for a team in a 7-game postseason series. Unbelievable. But also, they got hot at the right time. Let's face it, they were 16 and they won 16 of their last 18 games. That's the hottest streak in franchise history. 16 in 18 games. They all play together at once. And let's give Mike Rizzo. I give him a lot of credit because when they lost Bryce Harper, they signed Patrick Corbin. When everybody said traded Max Scherzer, they didn't trade Max Scherzer. They went with the old time-tested, formula of great starting pitching. And it worked. Give the hats off to the
Speaking of
Nationals.
Bryce Harper's birthday today. A very happy birthday, I'm sure. The city of Washington
birthday,
sends
Bryce.
Harper. There you go, Black.
Happy birthday.
Something you want to add, KB?
Well, I was just going to say the other thing is, this team also leads Major League in batting with 2 outs. It has been astounding how they've been able to come back when it seems like you could just count them out. And you saw a lot of that with Howie Kendrick.
Question for you guys. Drinking, or maybe I should say funneling from the NL Trophy. Yay or nay here, what they're doing with the NL Trophy? Blackistone?
It's all yay.
I'll go
Anything
yay.
you
It's
can do.
fine.
Hey, you can't rip it.
You can't rip that?
That's
Okay.
great.
I mean,
It's not a
I
joke.
love it.
No.
Can't rip any celebration.
Come on.
Well, I mean, you guys found a way to rip certain celebrations from time to time, but this one I think is all right. We'll move on. Yankees-Astros, Game 4, postponed. Storm Team Tracker, Doppler 4000. Yeah, seems like a good call. Seems like a good one. Bob Ryan, let me ask you this. Any idea what this does for the rest of the series?
Conventional wisdom says that it favors the Astros because the Yankees, by playing 4 games in a row, will have to use their relievers back-to-back at some point, something that Aaron Boone has avoided doing all year long. Now, we know they got the depth in the bullpen. We all know that. But how much depth is there? We're really going to find out. You got to like this for the Astros. I don't think there's any.
Lasky, that how you see it?
Yeah, Bob's exactly right. The bullpen's tired. In fact, to be exact, Aaron Boone has never used any of his relievers back-to-back at all this season for 3 straight games. He's going to have to do that now. Plus, they used a lot of them last night in the loss. I just think, it's really trending toward the Astros, and everybody's talking about saving Verlander. They can start Verlander now earlier than what they wanted to, and they need to start him and get him out there as quick as they can, get the series over as fast as they can, start him in Game 5. Don't wait for Game 6 or 7.
Tim Kalishaw?
I don't know if that's such a great idea with Verlander. I know A.J. Hinch said today he's going to do that. Then if it goes 6, then you got to do a bullpen game in Game 6. The Yankees do have the advantage now of getting back to Tanaka in Game 4 instead of Game 5. They feel like that gives them a little bit of an edge. Get their best pitcher back out there, get the series evened up.
And Kevin Blackistone?
Yeah, they don't have to go with the opener now in green as they were planning to do. And you know what? They just need to catch their breath. I mean, they were horrible against Verlander and Cole. You expect all those strikeouts, but they just need to get back to figuring out how to hit a baseball and get on base and score some runs. So I think the time off might be a little bit more to their advantage.
Speaking of last night and Garrett Cole, he hasn't lost a game in about 5 months. That's a game where the Yankees had him the ropes, but never got the runs across the plate. And I want to ask you about the ball again, because I showed you that chart from Rob Arthur, Baseball Prospectus, last week. Drag over the last 2 weeks of the postseason opposed to all season. Everybody was like, nah. But then you saw Gregorius last night. You saw Maldonado last night. You believe there's something with the ball, Bob Ryan, and how is it affecting postseason play?
So many people say there is. I'm in no position to contradict it, but I will argue this or point this out. Living in the Northeast all my life and watching games in Boston and New York specifically, that balls that won't go out in April and May go out in June, July, and August, and stop going out in September and October. And that's true in New York as well as Boston. So you got to factor that one in too.
So that's your eye test. You're not so worried. This corrects for weather and atmosphere. That chart that I showed you from Baseball Prospectus.
Could be a combination.
Okay, Bill Plaschke, do you think there's something with the ball?
Oh, absolutely. If baseball can juice the ball during the season, they can certainly unjuice the ball in the offseason, in the postseason, and that's what they've done. That Will Smith hit in the 9th inning at Dodger Stadium last week.
Oh,
that
yes,
was a home
this
run.
gets back to the Dodgers.
It was such a home run. It was such a home run. The Dodgers leaped over the fence, the dugout fence, to celebrate it. And then Gregorius last night, that looked like that was gone. My eye test and my head test says these balls are suddenly not juiced. They're being deadened.
Tim Kalishaw?
This sounds very conspiratorial to me. They just changed the balls all of a sudden.
Yeah, of course. Yes, yes, they do. They did their season. Yeah.
Plaschke, you think the ball was deadened when Altuve hit a ball 420 feet in the first inning last night? Is that what you think? I mean, there are balls that are getting out. Blackistone, you want to get in the last word?
That's exactly what I was going to say. What about the balls that Kershaw gave up, back-to-back jacks? What about Howie Kendrick's grand slam? I mean, did they not use the right balls for that particular game? Of course I am. Molina even had a home run last night.
It is odd. I'll give you this, Plaschke. Players are reacting in a way that would demonstrate what they thought was a home run or a well-hit ball all season long is not that, whether it's in the celebration or whether how quickly they're getting out of the box, let's say politely. It seems like players are a little surprised at the result. We've been horrible. We'll move on. A football trade. LA Rams trading away Marcus Peters, and then the big deal, trading for Jalen Ramsey. And it appears LA is going all in for this season. They're going to wind up going 5 straight years without a first-round draft pick, which is kind of unheard of, LA. But Bill, this is how they approach it. Who won this trade? Did anybody lose this trade? What do you think of it, Bill?
I think both teams won the trade. I think Peters can still play, and he'll be a valuable addition to the Ravens. But I think that the Rams, good for the Rams going for it. Obviously, the thing you want them to trade for is a running back, which they can't do. They've already got too much invested in Todd Gurley. The quarterback's scuffling. They need more offense, but they can't help themselves there. They can't help themselves on defense. Peters was getting beat. Jameis Winston torched him. Russell Wilson torched them. I think that, again, they're trying their best now. They still see a light in the end of the tunnel in this NFC. They're going for it. Good for them.
Tim Kalisha?
I think the Jaguars lose the trade. I think when you have a elite player like Jalen Ramsey, you got to find a way to make him happy. You got to find a way to, do whatever it takes. You give him up, and you're probably getting first-round picks. What are they going to be, 18th, 20th, something like that, and you don't know what you're getting there. That's a hard sell to Jacksonville fans in a division that still is somewhat winnable. There's not a great team there. Houston's a little better than the rest, but, I don't think the season was lost, and now I think a lot of the good Gardner Minshew feelings are gone because of giving Ramsey away.
So you don't think 2 first-rounders is enough? Historically, not many trades happen with 2 first-rounders.
If they were better first-rounders, but I know the Rams are 3-3, but, if they finish 10-6 this year and are still good next year, those aren't great picks.
KB on Ramsey?
Well, I know we looked at their defense, as Bill just pointed out, but when I look at it, at their whole team, I don't go, boy, they need Jalen Ramsey. I go, boy, they need some offensive line help. Saffold's down. The running game, as you just said, with the running back, maybe they can't get him, but maybe they can shore up that offensive line somehow, some way, because that's, to me, their biggest problem. Great for Ramsey going forward because obviously you lose Peters and probably even Talib, who's long in the tooth.
Oh, you've lost Talib, but Peters, you decided to part ways with. Bob Ryan, what do you think of what Los Angeles is doing here?
There was no offensive lineman equivalent available to them as there was to Ramsey. So let's forget that stuff. We all know they need an offensive lineman, but they're not going to get it in the middle of the season. This guy is going to upgrade them at a point. Look, they have made a commitment, a firm commitment. It's been pointed out. They're paying this money to Gurley. They're paying this money to Goff. They're paying this money to Donald. And they are a little bit, only a few months removed from the Super Bowl, when they still think they got a chance to go back in a somewhat wide open NFC. I don't agree with them. I think it's over, by the way, for them. But that's their
all right.
only course of action for them.
Be careful with that word, all right?
Put Bob on tape.
That word, yes, he's on tape, but that word is quickly approaching a banned word. Speaking of Tim Kalisha, do you even know what you said in the middle of your answer? Yes, you're still getting docked a point for a banned word, and we're taking a break right here. Oh, yeah, which one? I think you know. I think you know.
Say it again.
Say it again, Tim. Say it again.
Full narrative.
I didn't say problematic.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
I talked about it yesterday. I tweeted out a couple of responses to people not understanding, my knowledge of what it came from my brain and for me learning from the situation. I'm talking about it now, and I won't talk about it again.
LeBron James opting out. Bill Plaschke wrote in today's LA Times, gross hypocrisy from James. You said James and the NBA were acting like footstools to China. What do you believe the ramifications are to LeBron opting out?
I'm just so disappointed in all this. And LeBron, how hard would it have been for LeBron to say, you know what, I'll defend Daryl Morey's right to freedom of speech the way I've exercised my freedom of speech? How hard would it have been to say, I support Daryl Morey's support of human rights the way I've supported human rights? But no, as we have all learned, LeBron's support for his fight for social justice and human rights extends only as far as his wallet. This thing in China hurt his business interest, and he lashed out about it, and it's a bad look. It's a mercenary look for LeBron James.
Tim Kalisha?
I perfectly understand his desire to move on from a battle he fought and lost and accused Daryl Morey of being selfish when it was really the opposite. And, being LeBron James, he can move on and go back to being LeBron James, great basketball player. But the next time he tries to be LeBron James, a spokesman on social justice causes, people are going to raise a lot of eyebrows about why didn't you understand it then, but you want to get back to this.
Kevin Blackistone?
Yeah, he makes himself look inconsistent, and you can't be inconsistent when you step out on these sorts of issues. Human rights matter in the Black Lives Matter movement, just as they do in the protests going on in Hong Kong right now, and I would suggest that he not shy away from it and not speak about it, but instead spend some time to educate yourself about the very politics that are going on in that part of the world.
Bob Ryan?
I'm not interested in singling out LeBron or any other player for this because the real situational problem here is at the top. The NBA chose to get in business with an autocratic regime and that does things its own way. They should have studied what happened to Gap, Marriott, United Airlines when they stepped out of line in the Chinese eyes on the subject of territorial integrity. So they didn't do their homework. They were naive, and it's ridiculous to pile on any player for revealing a little unfamiliarity as LeBron did.
Okay, yeah, that was something
we
we broached on yesterday's program. Something I wanted to get your take on, Kevin Black. Some Clinton Yates talked about LeBron as a leader in the African American community and how he has spoken up in the past. He doesn't have to speak up for every single issue in the world. How do you feel about that?
No, he doesn't. Well, he doesn't have to speak up, but the fact is he did speak up on this, and he was wrong in what he said, and he needs to analyze this situation before speaking on it again.
This is what threw me off 2 days ago as well. It was always about Daryl Morey's tweet. And to me, the story was so far past that. It was about whether the NBA kowtowed to China and China's flex here and how they did their business. And that's what I would have wanted to hear LeBron speak to. We'll move on. Bill Plaschke, you wrote up LeBron today, and you wrote up the Angels today as well. This is another story, incredibly complicated. And news of the day is that the Angels hired Joe Maddon. Much larger than that, the scandal that's come out of tragedy and the investigation into the drug-related death of Tyler Skaggs. And now the team's director of communications, currently on leave, cooperating with the DEA and federal authorities. Bill, as the Angels try to move on from this, how can they?
Yeah, it's really a sad story. It's a baseball team in need of a baseball story. That's why they hired Joe Maddon to try to deflect some of the attention away from it. But they've got huge issues in the drug-related death of Tyler Skaggs. There's employees, allegedly involved. The DEA is looking into it. There's players allegedly involved. The club is standing back and waiting to see what the DEA does and what their fines are before they're seeing how culpable they are. It's a mess over there. It's a real mess. And Joe Maddon is probably, baseball-wise, the perfect man to come in and try to calm the storm and kind of steer the attention away from that. But there's still a long road to go on this Tyler Skaggs.
Before we steer away from it, do you believe the team sitting back and trying to, they made a managing hire today and letting the DEA run their investigation is the wisest? Or should they be a little bit more public on how they feel this is going now?
I think because of the lawsuits involved, there's so many lawsuits involved here, I think they're probably wise to stay out of it until the feds have done their work.
Tim Kalisha?
Yeah, I think it's as Bill said, a dark day for the Angels. But how about everyone else? How about baseball? How about this country? If it's worth talking to 5 or 6 players, besides after the Skaggs death on the Angels, and this doesn't mean they're all guilty, but if it's worth talking to them, do we think that number is 0 on 29 other major league teams or other sports entities? We know it's a national epidemic, and I think we have no idea how far it extends.
Kevin Blackstone.
It's a national epidemic, just like cocaine abuse was a national epidemic when it caught Len Bias here in Washington, D.C. and reverberated around the country, including up into Boston. And I remember how that rolled through the campus, College Park, the University of Maryland. It's going to take, there is no hire that can be made, no firing that can be made to make that go away immediately. This is going to be something that takes some years and a cultural change.
The Angels were in need of a baseball refresher, if you will, a page turner on the baseball sense. And now when you combine this with this new need for a PR fix, if you will, a PR approach to oversee a mess that is of no one's, this new guy's understanding, they got Central Casting has sent over Joe Maddon, the perfect guy, the guy who does things in an unorthodox way, a humorous way, an inventive way, a creative way, and he will win all the press conferences before and after the game, and this is what they need right now.
Bill Plaschke, Tim Kalisha, thanks for your thoughts today. Kevin Blackstone and Bob Ryan. Stick around. If you guys are free, I'd love for you to show down the last 3 topics of the day in 2 minutes.
It's a calamitous, disjointed, error-strewn, awful performance from the USA.
The United States men's national team, you're in a crisis. You know it, and anyone else that tries to deny it is full of it. They are in crisis mode.
Ian Dark and Taylor 12. And what are we doing? Canada 2, USA nothing. KB, is it that bad?
No, it's not that bad. How can we be in a crisis mode right now? The World Cup is not until 2022.
All right, that's a mute for you. Bob Ryan, is it that bad?
29 years ago, Paul Caligari got us back into the cup with a goal over Trinidad and Tobago. We should be much, 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 much better by this time. Much better.
We can't even
better.
beat Trinidad and Tobago. We can only draw against them. First loss to Canada in 34 years. This is a crisis. What are we doing? The bright side is we have the best team in the world, the women's team. Showdown 2, Clemson kicker change. Dabo Swinney was ripping into BT Potter after the missed kick in a 28-0 game. Now he's going with the 2-kicker philosophy. Bob Ryan, how do you rule?
Where's that good Christian gentleman I read about in Sports Illustrated providing inspiration and love for his team? But where did he go? Who is this imposter Swinney that we're looking at here? What is this?
That was that guy spitting fire and brimstone at his kicker. Look, Potter's in a hairy situation right now with this Clemson team. I mean, look at the way they got the start, Trevor.
Potter in a hairy situation? Is that what you're going?
Yeah.
I think you're going to go off BT Barnum and say there's a kicker every minute. Forget it. Titletown getting a loss today. Take it, Bob Ryan. 30 seconds.
Calvin Coolidge was president. The Washington Senators involved in a 7-game great series with the New York Giants. Walter Johnson loses 2 games on the way, but in Game 7 he's on relief, and he's in extra innings, and he's in the middle of a winning rally. And Earl McNeely gets the winning hit, and the Washington Senators win their one and yet only World Championship for player manager Bucky Harris. May they have his good fortune this time. How about that?
The history lesson, yes, of course. What was it?
What was the press
First in war, first in peace, last in the American League. Is that what it was?
Very rickety.
Not anymore.
Got robbed.
We'll see you tomorrow.